Hey everybody, how's it going? I am here with my brother who is visiting me in town from Denver, and I was going to make this video a long time ago, but it turned out to be way too long, so I had to redo it on my favorite movies of the 80s. Now, this is of no great significance to the contest, however, it might provide you with a little bit more insight as to what I like and what I'll be prioritizing when it comes to the end of the year, and I do my 10 for this decade. Number 10, favorite movie of the 80s, was Innerspace. This is a movie directed by Joe Dante. It's a sci-fi comedy, and this was the first movie that I actually went out and saw on my own, paid my own way for. This was like, I don't know, what was I, 14 or something like that? And of course, all my friends at this point were already going to R-rated movies, but of course I wasn't, gutsy enough to do that. But it's a really funny movie. Martin Short became a big fan because of his, and generally it's just a lot of fun. In fact, I like this movie so much, and I went back to see it so many times that I memorized all the dialogue from beginning to end, and according to legend, actually recited the whole thing on a family road trip. Now, Talk Radio, number 9, is directed by Oliver Stone. It's based on a play that was written and starred Eric Bogosian. He's the captain on Law & Order Criminal Intent now, I believe. Anyway, this is about a radio jockey, a talk show host in Dallas, who's Jewish and is very vocal and opinionated and consequently inspires a lot of ire in his viewers in the Dallas area. This is probably one of the first movies that is really sort of character-driven rather than story-driven that I watched. It came out in '88 between Wall Street and Born on the 4th of July, and there really isn't so much of a plot here as there is just a look at this guy's life. Very interesting and just fascinating. The guy is amazing, and a great cast, too. Number 8 is, of course, E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial by Steven Spielberg. This movie, of course, I loved when I first saw it, but I really didn't start to appreciate how good it was until it was re-released in 1985, which is significant because another movie came out in '85 that I love as well. E.T. was the first movie which I started to really pay attention to what the director was doing. I was familiar with the story and the characters and the music and everything like that, but I started to look at things like how they shot E.T., mostly in silhouette at first, or you just see his hands and then eventually you see his face. I was paying attention to things like what the last shot of the movie was. It was Elliot as opposed to just the spaceship flying away. What the first shot of the movie was. Where the credits come. Different sort of transitional shots. I wasn't paying attention to that stuff before then, but I kind of started to on this because I was so familiar with it already and hadn't seen it in like 3 years. So, good one. Number 7 is RoboCop. This is directed by Paul Verhoeven, who went on to do Showgirls and Basic Instinct and Starship Troopers. This is a really funny movie. I read the novelization of this like a year before I got around to seeing it because, of course, it's pretty harsh R-rated violence, and so it wasn't until like it came on cable a year after it actually came out in the theater that I got a chance to see it. But this has an incredible cast and really funny. It's just one of the most fun movies ever, and it's a favorite among my friends. Also, just really like the storyline, the predicament that the guy finds himself in. He was human, then he died, now he's not quite human, he's not quite machine, he doesn't belong anywhere. It's kind of sad, but also a really fun movie. And, just a lot of kick-ass action. Number 6 is, of course, the second Star Wars movie that was made, The Empire Strikes Back, also known as Episode 5. And this is sort of obviously taking the genre that is more kid-friendly in a slightly more mature direction. It had kind of a downer ending, which I wasn't used to. This movie came out in like 1981. I was really young then. I was like, I don't know, 8 years old when this movie came out. And so, it was not something I was used to. But, of course, obviously the Yoda character is very memorable. All the confrontations between Luke and Vader are very memorable. And the asteroid battle, just of course, overall a great movie. But also, obviously, the best Star Wars movie. So that's very important. Full Metal Jacket, that's number 5. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick. It was the movie he made prior to Eyes Wide Shut, his last movie, and there was like a 12-year gap there. Now, I read a little bit about Kubrick, but wasn't really familiar with him, and this one was really a sock in the stomach. I just, about halfway through this movie when I first watched it, I had to shut it off and pick it up again later because it's just so intense. Obviously, Arlie Ermey is a character actor who's known for this character, and he's played basically every variation of this character since then. But this was one of those movies that really, of course, really kind of stuck with me for a long time. It's very important. Obviously, it's very harsh and brutal, but kind of appreciated some of the themes and some of the mirroring going on throughout the thing. So, again, that's pretty amazing. Number 4 is Roger and Me, Michael Moore's first film. He was a resident, of course, of Flint, Michigan, lived there all his life, and he became very angry when GM started closing auto plants, so he decided to make this movie. And never heard of this guy before, but of course, because it was his first movie, but man, this is funny. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of outrage going on here, but it's given a humorous spin, and so that was pretty terrific. I enjoyed that movie quite a lot, especially the interview with the Miss America contestant. It's just outrageous how naive and how ignorant she is, but it makes for a good, funny experience. Number 3 is Raiders of the Lost Ark, also by Steven Spielberg. Obviously, this is an extremely iconic movie with an extremely iconic main character, Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, and all that. And it's pretty much set the template for action movies, not just for the industry, but kind of for me as well. I tend to favor movies that emphasize stunts over gunfire, at least most of the time. It depends. But yeah, this is just an all-out fun movie, one of the best Spielberg movies made, and obviously great score, great cast. Love Karen Allen, love all these supporting villains. It's fantastic. And when I first saw this, it was years and years after it came out. I saw it with a group of friends, and they were all, you know, just sort of egging me on, saying, "Oh, wait, you'll see this part. This will teach you not to stick your finger in a fan," that kind of thing. And I was just like, "What's going to happen?" You know, just nonstop excitement, and of course, lots of fun. So that's also good. Now, The Fly is directed by David Cronenberg, and this is a movie that came out in '86. It's a remake of a 1950s movie, I believe starring Vincent Price, but this is much more mature and adult-oriented. It's probably one of the first movies that's really sort of geared towards a relationship versus a plot. I guess the focus of it, of course, is he's got the teleportation machine that messes with his DNA. But again, just sort of starting to move into more adult themes and adult subject matter versus the, you know, sort of fun adventure type movies that I've seen in the past. And this was also pretty significant, is that you know, it was just like really extreme as far as what happens as far as the imagery goes. Up until this point, I'd kind of avoid movies that were incredibly disgusting or disturbing, and this one actually I managed to endure and take a lot of value in it. It's really good. And finally, my favorite movie of the 80s is Back to the Future, directed by Robert Zemeckis. It's also kind of Spielberg related, and then he produced it. But this is obviously a very fun movie. It's very well written too. And the reason why this is significant, this is the other movie that came out in '85 that I really took a liking to. This movie was the first one where I really started to understand what the writer did. When I sort of sat back and thought about how all the dialogue referred to all these different things that happened, and how many lines had double meanings, and how the story was constructed, and how everything kind of worked out, I realized someone actually sat down ahead of time and actually figured out how all this stuff is supposed to work. And that's, of course, what the scriptwriter does, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. Until that point, I hadn't really considered it. I just watched a movie and watched the characters do what they do, and everything worked out or didn't. And this is sort of the first time I considered that. Of course, there's a lot of other good stuff in here. Crispin Glover, who played George McFly, he's like my hero. It's him, Luke Skywalker, and David Lightman from War Games. They're like my, you know, geek heroes. So that's pretty something else. That's one's good. Anyway, these are my favorite films of the 80s, and that might give you a little more insight as to what movies I'll be focusing on for the best of the decade. Perhaps. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you next time.